Do you feel like the black sheep of your family? Do you feel like you are carrying all of the pain and trauma of all of your ancestors and that you've observed all of this dysfunction, worked through all of this pain, and vowed that all of this will stop with you? Do you feel like you are the chosen one of your ancestors here to break the generational curses? Well, if you are, congratulations and thank you for the work that you have done. But let's go a little deeper of signs that you are breaking generational curses. The first one, you are less combative with family members. Although there's a lot of dysfunction between families arguing and bickering, you choose to stay in peace and you choose to avoid the conflict and confrontation. And if you know that you're going to be around certain family members and fights or arguments and conflicts can sometimes arise, you will just choose to preserve yourself, your energy, and just not be in that environment, in that vicinity, or not be around those people. Or even if you do have to deal with these people, you choose to walk away because you realize there's nothing to gain from arguing with somebody. Number two, you challenge the norms. While everyone else is saying, go get a 9 to 5 job, go to college, go do this, go work for this matrix, go be a slave for the rest of your life. You're like, oh, but no, because abundance and freedom is not coming from a salary. Abundance and freedom is not coming from working for another person. Abundance and freedom comes from creating a lifestyle, working for yourself, being your own boss. Period. Yes, you challenge every single norm. Every single norm, you challenge it because you know, listen, we don't need what they created for us. In order for us to break the curse, we have to step out of it, step out of that box that they boxed us in. So you step out of the box no matter what it is. Number three, you see problems within the family and want to do differently. If you see differences in the way that people parent, for example, and this is the first one, when you see how your parents have parented you, you know, I don't want to make those same mistakes. I don't want my kids to grow up the way that I grew up. So you know that you are going to change and do things differently. You're going to be more empathetic with your children because that's what we've lacked. We've been cursed and we have been more apathetic and less empathetic. And you know that you are going to do things differently. You're going to allow your children to have a voice. You're going to allow your children to do what they want to do, be their own person, not forcing your child and molding them into being who you want them to be because you look at your child as your own, as their own person, not as your property. And number four, when in conflict with family, you search for a solution instead of just discussing the problem. Oftentimes there's a lot of arguing and back and forth and everyone's pointing the fingers at everybody else, pointing out the problems and pointing out everyone's flaws instead of trying to find a solution to the problem. You have new ideas of how to define family. You want to recreate and reconstruct and build on your own foundation what a good loving family looks like, feels like, acts like, and speaks like. Because you grew up in a family where everyone pretended to be this loving, great, amazing family, but really behind closed doors, there was a lot of dysfunction, there was a lot of chaos, there was a lot of toxicity, there was a lot of abuse, there was a lot of narcissism, a lot of gaslighting. It was a lot of that stuff. And although it may look some way on the outside, on the inside, it was a different story. You want to make it where what it looks like on the outside is exactly what it is on the inside. You want a family to be real, not superficial. Number six, you have new solutions on how to treat family. And the way that you can treat family is to use your empathy more, is put yourself in their shoes, especially when dealing with raising your children. Is instead of fussing at a child for crying or doing the same repetitive things that your parents and caregivers have done to you, you are thinking outside the box. You're doing something differently. You're thinking, we cannot fix the problem by creating more problem. We can't relieve a child's stress by creating more stress. We have to relieve the stress by us not being stressful and us being calm in our approach. You know that there's a different approach when you're dealing with your children, a different approach when you deal with your spouse, because everything is going to change. And you know that you're not going to go based off of what you saw, but what you know in your heart and in your intuition, and by studying the word, by studying the word of God, how a good functional family should be, how a husband and wife should speak to each other, how a parent and a child should have their dynamic. You're reconstructing the way that you would define what family is. Number 7, you want to make changes to the family dynamic. You want to make sure that what you grew up with, you're not going to have a repeat of that. You want to have a more peaceful dynamic within your family. You want to be able to know your children. You want to be able to have a bond with your children. You don't want it to just be how you grew up, where your parents provided for you, but they were physically present, but they weren't really fully present in your life, and you grew up and now you're an adult and you feel like your parents don't even really know you. You don't want that for yourself. You don't want that for your own family and your own children. So you are going to be actively in your family's life, in your children's life, to make sure that you know them and be the most supportive person that you can be, because this is the foundation that we should always be on. This is the foundation that we have had from the very beginning. Before this curse happened, we're going back to our roots. You are changing the narratives for when it comes to love. You want to love unconditionally. But the love that you've experienced throughout your life has been conditional. As long as you obliged what your family or your parents wanted you to do, as long as you did what your friends said, as long as you did with those relationships, those significant other, those partners, as long as you did what they wanted, as long as you pleased them, then they loved you. But it was conditional love, because you were not given that same amount of love when you decided to put yourself first. You were not given that same amount of love when you decided to set boundaries. When you decided to start showing up for your life, they weren't keeping the same energy. But you realize how that is counterproductive, and you realize that the better way for us to love is unconditional. So you are changing the narrative to when it comes to love. So you will love your spouse unconditionally, and this is how you will choose your spouse. Well, you will know that your God ordained spouse is your God ordained spouse, because God will confirm it to you, and you know that you will choose the right partner. Also, you will know who the right partner is for you is because you love this partner unconditionally. If you're with someone and you are thinking of maybe marrying them, but you don't love them unconditionally, that's not your partner. But if you love them unconditionally, that is your partner. That is the person that God has ordained for you. Number 9. You have a strong pull to live a different life from society. While all of society wants to have a regular job and do all of this, and they want to work all of these crazy hours and make all of this money just to have material, tangible goods, you realize, listen, I'm still going to get my money, I'm still going to get my bag, but I'm not going to do it the way that everyone else is doing it. I'm going to do it in a way that's going to be fulfilling to my soul. Because if I fulfill my flesh, but I'm neglecting my soul, then I am the one that's suffering. And you've realized this and you've become aware of this now. So now you realize that you want your whole life and structure to be different. You want your life and structure to be the way you want it to be, living your life unapologetically and authentically to you, not by society's standards. You may be the oddball out, you may be the outcast, you may be doing the thing that none of the people around you, none of your family is doing, but you know that this is what is best for you, because this is what's going to break that curse. When it comes to breaking the curse, everything you do is going to have to be different. You can't follow the crowd. You have to start your own path and be the one to lead the pack into a new way. You won't follow the crowd because you will be leading the crowd. Next, I lost track of the number. Next, you will be leading by example and striving towards the shift for the collective. You know for a fact that this curse needs to be broken and that we need to bring love and light back into this world. And you know that you are meant to be a leader in this world for people to follow, because you are guiding people on a new path. You are guiding people to elevate them into a new way of living. But how can people know how to live this life of freedom and abundance? They have to watch someone that's already living it and already doing it, so they know if that person can do it, then I can do it too. So it is your job to live your life authentically. It is your job to live unapologetically you, to not go by society's standards, to not follow what the crowd is doing, to not follow your friends, to not follow your family, to do everything that your soul is calling you to do, being a living, walking testimony of what it is to break the generational curses, leading by example. Number 11, finding newer and more effective ways to parent. We understand that parenting does not come with a manual. No one gives you a book and tells you how to parent, because Every person is different, every child is different, and your child is a reflection of you. So finding newer and effective ways to parent is going to be finding newer and effective ways on how to reparent yourself. You're knowing that being a parent, you're also not only parenting your child, your offspring, but reparenting yourself, healing the pain, healing the trauma, healing things that have happened in your past, because it's now resurfacing for you to face it, because the universe will test you so crazy. You can heal before you have kids, but those triggers, those traumas are going to come back when you have children to see if you've learned the lesson. And you have newer and more effective ways to parent, because you think, what have I done for myself? How did I parent myself? And you use those same tactics that you used on yourself on your own children. And using those new tactics has a great effective way and a productive, proactive way to parent. And your children are not traumatized. Your children are not affected. Your children are not abused. Your children are respected. They're honored. They're loved. They're cared for. They have compassion, and they're given empathy. And which brings me to the last point, number 12. You use more empathy. Empathy is the greatest gift that you can be given with, is to be able to feel what another person is feeling. Because when you are empathetic, you are more caring, you are more loving, you are not hateful, you are not evil, you are not as angry. When you are empathetic, you treat people better. When you're empathetic, you're more respectful. When you're empathetic, you are more compassionate, more loving. Empathy is tied to love. When you are a person of empathy, you are a person of love. And that is what this world needs right now. This world just needs love. The key to healing is love.